Hey guys! So today you and I are going to talk about learning. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, hi Frederick, what would your advice be for self-taught JavaScript developers who have a lot of knowledge gaps that you have described in this video and are already employed and therefore may not necessarily have all the energy and time to devote to filling those gaps in their free time? How would you use your work environment to get there, given that of course you can also devote some of your free time here and there? Thank you for your videos. Well, this was posted on a video I made a while back that is called "Is Object-Oriented Programming a Thing in JavaScript?" And my basic argument there is that, well, most of these theoretical concepts, as I like to say, they're depending on your community, you will know more or less about certain topics. So, for example, if someone comes from a background of JavaScript, your path to mastering that specific language and all the things around it will be different usually from if you say do Java or C or C Sharp or whatever have you, right, or PHP for example. Like, because each community is a little bit different. Like the core structures of a programming language are almost always the same. There are of course differences here and there, but the main stuff is usually very similar. However, as I like to say to the people who come to me and say, oh, I'm a full stack JavaScript developer. Well, yes, that might be what you think. It's just that for me, and probably for the programmers who have a background in, say, C Sharp or Java or like one of those more traditional languages, we might feel that it's a little bit you are correct, because you can write software most likely in, say, Node.js in this case most of the time, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you understand these more back-end heavy theoretical concepts like domain-driven design, object-oriented programming. I'm in no way saying that just because you know those things, therefore you are, then you have your certificate for being a back-end developer. It's just that it's literally the same as saying that if you know some basics about something, then you know all the things that are necessary in order to do that job well. And I have to this day never seen a purebred JavaScript developer who knew of the first thing about how to structure well-working backend code or so forth and so forth. I mean, so we can discuss whether or not that actually is applicable to you or not. But in this case, alright, do you want to be more serious about the theory and the practices that are more associated with serious backend development usually? Because it's very important for you guys to understand that Node.js and like full stack JavaScript development, it hasn't been a thing for more than, I mean, okay, now it's been a 10. I'm not gonna don't quote me on the exact number now, but like if you think about backend development, it's much older than Node.js. And the people who established most of the theory that the older languages and like the people working those languages have been using for years and years and years, they were here before Node.js and they were here before JavaScript. And so the thing that you are looking to do basically is, in my opinion at the very least, is that you basically can more or less abandon the idea that you're going to get that value and all that knowledge from JavaScript itself and its community. Because the JavaScript community has a very different, well, there are absolutely people who are making object-oriented programming content and things like that for like Node.js developers and things like that. But I hope you understand that the, the the focus isn't to learn these things, and it's the focus of the community is not to provide that knowledge to JavaScript developers. The focus, I argue, usually in JavaScript land is tooling and libraries. That's like the 99% of what you see. What framework are you using? That's what's important, usually. And so I usually say to people that if you want to get really good at anything, regardless of what it is, it doesn't have to be programming. you have to go and do the thing that the serious people who are doing it professionally or like doing it at a really high level, like what are they using? Just copy, mimic what they are doing. And so let's say now that you don't have the time to sit in your free time and learn these sorts of things, right? That's okay. If you want to have the constriction, or as you were saying, like sometimes maybe, but for the most part you have to do it in your work environment. Well, if we assume now that you are a front-end developer, because I'm guessing that had you been a full stack developer in this situation, you would probably have had at least, this is the thing, right? You would have thought that you knew these sorts of topics, right? In many cases. And as I said, I question that a little bit sometimes. Like I know for a fact that there are, JavaScript developers who really know serious backend development concepts, but most companies, at the very least, they have a desire to provide a personal development plan for their software developers. Not all of them, but quite a few. And it might surprise you, but of all the things that you can suggest to your manager as concrete ways for you to improve as a software developer, if you are a front-end developer and you go and you say, I would like to learn a little bit more about backend, maybe I could pick up some stories or like do some small tasks here and there just to get a feel for it. At least in my experience, quite a lot of managers will be very open to that because it translates in their mind. One part is that it basically is a double whammy for them. They are fulfilling the company criteria of providing a development plan for their developers, because usually these things are not just down to each individual manager. For small companies it's different, but for the mid-levels and the larger ranges, they usually have some idea of like that this is something we want to do, right? That's the first thing. So there, check mark for that one, right? And the other thing is that this expands potentially, in their mind at the very least, your ability to solve problems for their organization. And that is a double, like that is double value for them. Like if you have a personal development plan that has very little synergy with what they are doing, like maybe you want to go into, I don't know, like something completely different, design, networking, or AI programming when you're not doing anything with it, for example, that synergizes a lot worse with the goals of the company. So if you go to your manager and suggest that you, as part of your personal development plan, would like to do a little bit more backend, at least what I've seen, that is usually a very welcome thing, and that is usually enough. Like I actually say to people that for all the people I know who has made the transition from one role in a company to another or similar sorts of things, like I have friends who used to be QAs and now they are full-fledged, super talented software developers with like enormous amounts of knowledge about DevOps and things like that. They start with one set of tasks, and then all they do is they look to their neighbor, like some of their coworkers, what are they doing, and then they try to poke around a little bit and see, can I help out with a few of those sorts of things, and now they expand their knowledge on company time. So what I want you to take away from this is that if you have a desire to expand yourself, if you're a front-end developer or a JavaScript developer, depending on how you want to look at this, one of the things that you can do if you don't have a lot of free time, and you are in this case as this person already employed, is to suggest taking on some backend knowledge or some backend tasks within the company as part of your development plan. Usually I find that for the companies that have a desire to see personal development in their developers, they are very open to this. In most cases I find, because as I said, it's a win-win for them. They are already trying to invest in your personal development, and this is something that synergizes 100% basically with what they are doing. Because if you, in theory now, could expand yourself to become a fairly decent full stack developer, well then all of a sudden they have on paper more capacity, like they're spreading their risk of, or like spreading the chance that you will be able to help out with certain tasks, and that in their mind usually develops into higher development velocity and things like that. So it is a win-win, and I argue, me personally, if you do have a desire to be a full stack developer or something similar to that, or even if, let's say that you are a full stack JavaScript developer but you want to do more backend oriented work, in those sorts of situations, maybe you're using, because it's very common that you have multiple languages in some cases, for like backend is a little bit more diverse when it comes to what languages they're using. You might be able to pick up some, well, depending on your backend language now, like tasks that are in another language. Like, as I said, for JavaScript developers, it's a little bit slim pickings to find really good content for object-oriented programming and all the concepts related to it, even if you're working in TypeScript or something like that. And in many cases, you might find that you will get more quality knowledge from languages such as C# or Java, for example. I'm not saying that those things are exclusive. It's just that those languages are the corporate, the enterprise languages, and the older languages where like the object-oriented paradigm is like it's so ingrained into it, and a lot of the best reading materials and learning materials for object-oriented programming is more or less made within those languages. Not there are plenty of other languages there, guys. I'm just taking these as fairly good examples. So if you are open to this, suggest it to your manager and see what they say. And I think that on average, if the company is already looking into these sorts of things and trying to provide learning opportunities, they will be very open to that. Have a great day.